everyone. I have a bonus episode for you. I am so lucky and so grateful to have an interview with a former presidential candidate of Belarus. His name is Andrei Sannikov. We met at the Oslo Freedom Forum last year and we really hit it off. And I'm excited to bring him on because just to give you a quick recap, Belarus had presidential elections last weekend. The dictator that's been ruling there for 26 years claimed 80% of the vote. Obviously, many people are claiming that the vote was rigged because his opponent, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, was very popular and had largest rallies we had seen in a long time. A lot of independent monitoring groups were saying that she had won numerous polling stations. This guy has been often called Europe's last dictator. And it's hard to believe what's happening in a European country on the border of the EU, as my friend Andrei has said numerous times. This dictator, Alexander Lukashenko, he has been ruling with an iron fist, with brutal repression. Protests have erupted and he has responded with indiscriminate violence, beatings, detentions, torture. It's just been horrific. And so I wanted to bring Andrei on to tell us a little bit more about what he's seeing happening there, what he has seen go on, certainly since his run for president in 2010. And so there you go. Andrei, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I think it's for the first time that I'm being a bonus anywhere.
Yes, you are. You're always the bonus, Andrei. Well, thank you for letting us have a bonus episode. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in Belarus right now with the violence? The footage coming out of Belarus is really, truly hard to watch. And can you give us an idea of how bad things have gotten there? Is this the worst level of violence the demonstrators have suffered, and do you expect it to continue?
Well, what you're seeing now in Belarus is revolution. It's a true revolution that started on the 9th of August. The preparation for this revolution started before, when people demonstrated against Lukashenko, against the regime, during the collection of signatures to support the presidential candidates, during the campaigning of presidential candidates. But today it is really, you can see the whole people in Belarus are rejecting this dictator, who is rightfully called, you mentioned the last dictator in Europe, when people are saying that, no, there is another dictatorship in Europe. I say, no, it's not in Europe, it's in Europe and in Asia. So it's a Eurasian dictatorship, if you mean Putin and Kremlin. So the people started to revolt, started to reject this obsolete regime, because he's in power for 26 years. And for 24 years, he rules Belarus illegally, because he usurped power by changing the constitution in an unlawful way. And today if you asked me 3 days ago, I would say that the situation is very tense and I don't know what to expect. I do expect more violence. That I would have said 3 days ago. Today I say that no, there is a breakthrough. People are winning. Regime is not existing anymore. Lukashenko himself and his cronies might do nasty things, try to do nasty things, continue to do it. But the people are winning and they are feeling that they are winning. There are a lot of people in the streets. The moment we speak, I hope that the people are shouting in every street, in every square in Belarus, go away, because that was the flash mob action that was planned for today at 7 o'clock Minsk time, Belarus time. And that's, I hope that what is happening and the world will hear it as well, not only the people in Belarus. So I think that the mood today is, of course, people are alert. The riot police, the criminals from riot police are still at large, and people have to be very careful in the streets. But at least they started to release political activists, recognizing that they are losing, and losing big time this time.
Right, and as you and I both know, I mean, usually with these types of dictators, when they behave this way, when they crack down with such violence and they shut down the internet and things like that, it usually means they are threatened. And I've heard you say already publicly that Lukashenko is a coward. What do you think is needed to finally get to the next step for Belarus so that they can do away with this regime and get a step closer toward democracy and basic human rights?
We have a plan, I think it quite clear, to form a coalition government involving a couple of those who are not involved in, not guilty of serious crimes from the existing officials, and then go back to the constitution of 1994, the only legal constitution that we had in independent Belarus, and organize as quickly as possible elections, both presidential and parliamentary, because what Lukashenko did in his regime, they destroyed the division of powers, the separation of powers. So we don't have a separate judiciary, legislative and executive power. It's all Lukashenko who decides. And for this, we need support, understanding, attention of international community. And of course, we need also the rejection of these sham elections that happened on the 9th of August, because of course they were falsified, they were rigged as before. Mm-hmm. And we need non-recognition of Lukashenko. It doesn't matter that some of the dictators wanted their names to be put on this sham list of those who congratulated Lukashenko. They're mostly, former Soviet republics that have problems with democracy, and Maduro, very good company.
Right.
It doesn't matter. But we need a very strong message of non-recognition from democratic world. And sanctioning the criminals who are now still at large in Belarus, and supporting the will of people to have new elections. And then we will need international observation of this election to make it very clean and legitimate.
Right. And I want to get to your point about sanctions, but before we do, you mentioned the point about needing to hear from the West, from the democratic nations. Do you see more momentum in that regard? Are you hopeful in that space, maybe both through what you're seeing publicly or maybe through your private conversations? Because, here in the United States, it took a while for this news to really pick up. I do see it having picked up, but, on cable TV networks, not so much. So what do you think? Are you seeing some positive light there? Or do you think that given Lukashenko's relationship with Putin and how the West is communicating with Putin lately, do you see that being problematic for Belarus right now?
No, I don't think it is problematic, not because of Putin, but because of Europe, because the United States a little bit further from Belarus than Europe. And Europe made a grave mistake in 2016 when it lifted sanctions on the criminals in Belarus. And now, they're going through a period of being hurt that their strategy was wrong. Their strategy didn't work. So let them have this period of hurt feelings, but we do expect them to go back to sanctions and sanctions criminals in Belarus. As for Russia, I wouldn't worry about Russia, because I think that what I read from Russian media, even state-controlled media, that the sympathy is on the side of the people. Lukashenko is nobody really likes Lukashenko. He
Right.
behaves himself so erratically, so arrogantly, offending Russians, not only Kremlin and Putin, but Russians as well. He is putting up some stupid shows like these Wagnerites who were detained on the territory of Belarus, allegedly planning something against Lukashenko. No, it was Lukashenko's show. And I think that he managed to achieve a lot of animosity in Russia towards himself personally. So I don't think that any sane decision maker would move to support Lukashenko against the people. No, it will be a suicide, even in the situation where apparently the decision makers or rulers of the country control the society. No, control the media.
Right.
No, I don't think so. So, of course, it is not Russia is not benevolent anywhere, and we can expect different kind of attitudes. And I'm not saying that there is no danger at all from these, but as I read what is going on now in Russia and as regards the situation in Belarus, I think that they have the most neutral approach during all these years when Lukashenko was in power.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, well, and I want to get back to your point about sanctions. I don't know if you remember, but the way we met at the Oslo Freedom Forum was at a breakfast on sanctions where I spoke, and you came up to me and you told me that you had been released from prison, you believed, because of sanctions. And having been myself someone who worked on sanctions for so long, I'm a big believer in sanctions, obviously. It was really moving to hear and to meet you. And I mentioned you in one of my op-eds in support of global Magnitsky sanctions for that reason. So can you talk a little bit about, do you think that they could really work in this regard? Do you need to see more from the United States and Europe? I know, obviously, you said Europe removed them in 2016 and you want to see them back. What kind of sanctions do you want to see? Is it just on Lukashenko? Is that on certain government agencies or his thugs?
Yes, we did speak about it, and I think we discussed also that politicians in the West, they tend to manipulate the definition of sanctions and the role of sanctions. They tend to present sanctions as a strategy. It's never been a strategy.
Right.
It is not a strategy, but it is a very effective tool.
It's a tool,
to
exactly.
support the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
First, you have
It's
to
not
have
the
the
silver
strategy.
bullet. Yeah.
First, you have to have the strategy, and the strategy should not be realpolitik. The strategy should not be the business with dictators. So sanctions do work, and I think that what I expect from the West is to apply sanctions to all the perpetrators. First of all, I'm really annoyed that the sanctions were not introduced earlier, because for 2 months we're having reliable information that people are being tortured in prison, the political activists are being tortured in prison. And there is an international convention against torture, which all the thugs try to avoid to comply with. But the international community has the very specific international document to use against the thugs and sanction them. Second, I expect the sanctions to include falsifiers, those who were actually the reason for brutality on the part of the government, because they, especially in Belarus, they announced the figures that are out of this universe. And third, I suggested to the European Union to introduce sanctions without introducing sanctions formally. I think it's a very good, and I took an example of visa form for entry into the United States, because I don't think, no, I know that there is no such questions in Schengen visa form, like, have you ever been involved in terrorism? Have you ever been or participated or involved in tortures? Have you ever been involved in the paramilitary groups that were used against peaceful demonstrators? And including to it also, have you ever been involved in falsification of elections?
Mm-hmm.
Make this list, very short list, and make people who are those riot police officers who are now not officers, I cannot call them officers. Officer for us is something that has honor.
You're right, militia.
Okay, when I discussed it with my friends, I was asked, but what if they lie? If they lie in the official form, it's a criminal offense. It's not difficult to prove the facts. With the internet, there are lists of these names everywhere. We can help to check the names against the answers, and
Right.
it will be, in my view, I don't know, it will be the most effective way, not for sanctioning a lot of people, criminals. Of course, it's not a very effective sanctions, but that's what Europe did as regards Belarus. They didn't sanction people in a harder way, like they did sanction Russia. It was travel ban, that's it. So we can achieve this travel ban by introducing this very simple mechanism.
That's true.
But
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. As you know, I'm a
yeah,
big believer.
no. That is something to discuss. I know that there are a lot of reluctance because, especially Europe is frankly is tied with Belarusian regime by business ties, and you know very well as I do that dictatorships are very lucrative for dirty business
Mm,
because there are no laws, there is no regulations, no rules. You have to go and bribe the top government officials, and you get the lucrative business in these countries. But I think that that is the way to somehow to provide security for Europe itself, because by this visa form, I think United States is providing some kind of security.
hmm
Because if the terrorists who are on the terrorist list say that they are not involved in the organization, and they may be allowed to enter the United States and then would be arrested for lying in this visa form. So I think it's time for the democratic world to really think about its own security in every possible way.
I agree. You know, it actually gets me to my next question. It's a perfect segue to my next and my last question for you, which is one of the things that I often tell my viewers and explain to my viewers is why these issues matter, why they should care about these issues, why they should voice themselves about these issues. So can you communicate to them why they should care about this, why this matters, and any other message that you want to convey to the West and to democratic nations?
Well, people want to live safely. People want to live their way of life to be protected. There is no protection if the thugs are ruling the states, the whole states. I can give you the latest example. The attitude towards COVID-19 in Lukashenko's regime. He
Oh,
was exposing people on purpose. And it's not only that there were people of foreign nationalities and maybe some Americans, not maybe, but definitely some Americans working for the embassy, not only in the embassy. But the people were traveling. They were traveling through Russia that was not for some time was not closed, and they were bringing their COVID infections all over the world. It is one of the examples. But this thugs ruling those countries like Lukashenko, like I don't know Aliyev in Azerbaijan, like Putin. They get a lot of money from criminal business. You know what criminal business is? Drugs. There is definitely a how to say delivery paths that go through from Afghanistan, for example, or even from Colombia via Russia, Belarus to Europe, and then to the United States. Then there is a criminal rings selling the body parts for medical purposes illegally. And I don't know what's going on with this illegal business. Then there is illegal supply of arms. And Belarus, a couple of years ago, was the major exporter of arms, although it doesn't produce any arms, any ready-made arms on its territory. So all kind of dirty business that hurt people. I don't know where this drug can kill anybody in the United States or anywhere else, in Ireland, in Great Britain, Canada, which could originate from Belarus. So it is, I think it by definitions, no matter where the dictatorship exists, it's the threat to the world, to international security, to your and our health, to you know to to the safety of families, to the safety of people. So I think that is unfortunately we are not living in a more secure world than in by the end of the last century, and it is felt by the people. You know why? Because I think it is really connected. Look at the Freedom House statistics. And the number of non-free countries is growing. And that is why I think that there is a direct connection between number of non-free countries and lack of safety for our life, even in democratic countries.
Right, I agree with you. I also have seen, just from following foreign policy and international affairs, a disturbing trend where sometimes it feels like the dictators lately around the world are winning,
Yes.
because the international community isn't speaking loudly enough, right? They feel that they can get away, and they push to see how far can they go. What is the red line for the United States? What is the red line for Europe? And when they don't put a red line there, or they just come out with statements that just they don't back up with action of any kind, then these guys take advantage. It's really a shame. But I do agree with you, from what I see in terms of the tide shifting in Belarus. I really do think that the people will take their country back soon. I also feel like we're at a precipice. And one of the things that we always used to say in government when it came to these dictators and human rights abusers was that they will one day face their day in court. Right? There will be accountability one day. It always catches up to them, at least most of the time. And so I'm really hopeful in that case for Belarus.
Absolutely.
Well, Andrei, thank you. I know I'm so grateful to have you on and so grateful for the time you gave. I know this is a particularly busy time for you. You are working around the clock to save your country, and you're doing a noble work for sure. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And Живе Belarus, as we say. Long live Belarus.
Long live Belarus.